This Karen literally chained my driveway shut and told me I was trespassing on my own family land. Worst decision of her life. I'd been gone 3 years and came home to find steel chains and a private community sign blocking the mountain road my great-grandfather built in 1923. While I was away, 8 multi-million-dollar mansions had sprouted like ugly weeds in my pristine valley. Some woman's overpowering designer perfume choked the crisp pine scent as she climbed out of her white Range Rover. Blonde bob, clipboard weapon, attitude sharper than broken glass. Well, the hermit returns. This is private property now, and you're trespassing. I kept my voice calm. Ma'am, that's my cabin up there. My family's owned this land since 1923. Her smile could have frozen lava. Not anymore, it isn't. Here's what this HOA queen didn't know. I didn't just own that cabin. I owned the mineral rights under every single one of her precious mansions. I'm Declan Forrester, Deck to anyone who's not serving me legal papers. 48 years old, spent most my life working oil rigs from Texas to North Dakota. My great-grandfather homesteaded this valley in 1923. 320 acres of Colorado wilderness, anchored by a hand-built log cabin. Then my mom got Alzheimer's. I was sending every paycheck to Denver's best memory care facility while she slowly forgot my name. The cabin sat empty. She passed 6 months ago. I was ready to come home and heal. The valley looked like a luxury magazine threw up on my childhood. Perfect green lawns replaced wildflower meadows. 8 glass and steel monstrosities dominated the landscape. And ruling over this was Vivian Ashworth, 54 years old, blonde bob sharp enough to cut glass. She'd swooped in 2 years ago through shell companies, bought up land, then crowned herself Queen of Pine Ridge Estates. Queen Viv handed me a manila envelope. 47 violation notices for the cabin that predated her by 50 years. Non-compliant roof color. My great-grandfather's cedar shingles didn't match their palette. Unauthorized outbuildings, the 1920s root cellar. Landscaping violations because wildflowers aren't approved. Grand total, $73,500 plus $500 per day. But what really crawled under my skin was how she said, certain types, with that tone. This woman had never worked real labor, but somehow I was the neighborhood cancer. The paperwork gave me 30 days. Pay up or face foreclosure. 30 days to comply with rules I'd never agreed to from an organization I'd never joined. I drove to the county courthouse. Jolene Carpenter had been clerk since Carter was president. The HOA covenant documents filed 18 months earlier gave Vivian power over everything. But my signature was nowhere on them. In Colorado, HOA covenants require unanimous consent. Just because neighbors sign doesn't mean you're bound. A week later, I'm enjoying coffee when 3 vehicles roll up. Viv's Range Rover leads, followed by 2 BMW SUVs. She emerges wearing safari costume from REI's most expensive rack. Designer hiking boots so pristine they've never touched dirt. Morning, Mr. Forrester. We're here for your mandatory architectural compliance inspection. I stay planted. Don't recall sending invitations. The HOA has full authority. Section 4.7 of the bylaws. Her committee starts clicking cameras. My cabin, my truck, my woodpile. Ma'am, this is private property. You weren't invited. Actually, we do. Section 4.7 clearly states. Section 4.7 of covenants I never signed. Documents that don't apply to property never legally included. Now I'm asking politely once to get off my land. Her face goes lobster red. She herds her committee back, but not before one parting shot. You'll regret this attitude. We have ways of dealing with troublemakers. Next morning, 14 violation notices. But I noticed something. The metadata on their photos shows timestamps from 3 days before their visit. These clowns had been trespassing all week. I picked up trail cameras at Radio Shack. 6 units with night vision and audio. Colorado's one-party consent state. Within 48 hours, I struck gold. The audio was crystal clear. We need documentation of every possible violation, Viv's voice. The more we stack up, the faster we pressure him into selling. What about environmental violations? Could we claim his septic system is contaminating groundwater? Brilliant. I'll call County Health tomorrow. Right on schedule, Earl Dawkins from County Health calls. Got a complaint about septic violations. Regulations require me to investigate. Earl, come on up. Bring your full testing kit. 3 hours later, Earl's shaking his head. Your septic system is cleaner than most brand new installations. Whoever filed this was either ignorant or flat out lying. I hand him a USB drive with trail camera highlights. Earl, I think you'll find this makes fascinating viewing, especially where they discuss filing false environmental complaints. 2 days later, 3 official vehicles arrive. County Health, Building Inspector, State Environmental Officer. Behind them, a news crew. Earl climbs out looking embarrassed. Got 3 more anonymous complaints. State says I have to follow up with the hazmat team. I can smell the setup. The timing's too perfect. I noticed the news reporter interviewing someone just out of frame, platinum blonde hair and designer boots. Viv orchestrated this circus with media coverage. I walk over. Excuse me, I'm Declan Forrester, the property owner. Since you're covering this, I'd like to share information. I show her trail camera screenshots. The person who just gave you that interview has been trespassing on my property for weeks, and I have video evidence of her discussing filing false reports. Viv's face goes white, then red, then purple. You can't, this is harassment. Meanwhile, the hazmat team's detector should be beeping like crazy if there's contamination. Instead it's silent. Mr. Forrester, Rodriguez says, pulling off his mask. I've never seen readings this clean. Your system exceeds environmental standards. Whoever reported contamination was either misinformed or deliberately lying. The building inspector agrees. Your cabin's foundation is solid granite and steel construction. These reports claimed imminent collapse, but this building could survive a nuclear bomb. That evening, I researched Vivian Ashworth's background. She's left a trail of suspicious property disputes across 3 states, each involving environmental complaints, harassment campaigns, and mysterious property acquisitions at below-market prices. Texas, 4 developments, 17 families forced out. Florida, 2 developments, 9 families. Arizona, 3 developments closed down by state attorney general for racketeering. But her research team never checked mineral rights history. The original 1923 homestead patent didn't just grant surface rights. It included mineral rights, water rights, and perpetual access easement. Every single mansion foundation sits on top of my mineral rights. That evening, I'm reading by kerosene light when I hear someone trying to be quiet on gravel. 3 figures in dark clothing are creeping around with spray paint cans and a bag of supplies. The smell of gasoline hits my nose. These idiots are about to try burning down a cabin built from fire-resistant cedar during wet season on property under electronic surveillance. I step onto the porch with a flashlight and my grandfather's rifle, not pointing it, just visible. Evening, folks. Beautiful night for a walk. The figures freeze. In the flashlight beam, 2 men and a woman wearing ski masks. I'm counting to 10, then calling the sheriff. Y'all might want to consider whether whatever you're getting paid is worth felony arson charges. They drop their supplies and run. But they left behind gasoline, spray paint, road flares, and a timing device. I call Sheriff Martinez. 20 minutes later, he's photographing the abandoned arson supplies while I show him trail camera footage. Son, you just gave me enough evidence to arrest someone for attempted arson, conspiracy, and probably RICO charges. 3 days later, I'm sitting in Roxanne Blackwood's office, a property rights attorney who specializes in cases big firms won't touch. Mr. Forrester, you're not going to believe what my research team found. She slides over a thick folder. The first document is my great-grandfather's original 1923 homestead patent stamped with federal seals. Your great-grandfather didn't just homestead 320 acres. According to federal records, he filed claims on mineral rights covering 1280 acres, the entire valley floor plus surrounding ridge lines. I'm still processing when she continues. When your family sold off parcels in the 70s and 80s, the deeds transferred surface rights only. The mineral rights stayed with the original homestead patent, which means you own the mineral rights under every single mansion in Pine Ridge Estates. The room goes quiet. But wait. Under federal mining law, mineral rights include reasonable surface access, which means you have legal authority to access your mineral holdings even if someone else owns the surface. She slides over a geological survey from the 80s showing the valley sits on significant deposits of rare earth elements. Mr. Forrester, based on current market prices, your mineral holdings could be worth anywhere from $50 million to $200 million. I lean back, feeling like someone hit me with a sledgehammer made of good news. And here's the best part. Every building permit issued for those mansions should have required notification of mineral rights holders. That's federal law. She pulls out another folder. None of the permits filed for Pine Ridge included mineral rights notifications. Which means every single construction permit was issued illegally. My jaw drops. So their entire development is built on illegally issued permits? Gets better. Only $800,000 shows up in legitimate HOA expenses out of $2.8 million collected. The remaining $2 million disappeared into shell companies owned by board members' family businesses. She's been embezzling $2 million? That's just what we can trace. Roxanne hands me a letter with FBI letterhead. This morning I contacted the federal task force investigating property fraud schemes. Agent Patricia Reeves is very interested in talking to you. 2 weeks later, I'm watching sunrise when helicopters break the morning silence. Federal birds, black and serious, circling the valley. By 8 a.m., Pine Ridge looks like a federal crime scene. FBI vehicles, IRS vans, EPA trucks, and enough federal agents to invade a small country. My phone buzzes with texts. Holy shit, Deck, what did you do? FBI just arrested Viv at her house. Biggest HOA fraud case in Colorado history. Roxanne calls from what sounds like a war room. Deck, the raid on Viv's house turned up evidence of fraud schemes in 6 states. 43 families defrauded, 18 million stolen, and enough RICO violations to keep prosecutors busy for 5 years. But Viv's not going quietly. By afternoon, the news runs her crisis management playbook. That evening Jake calls. Remember those 3 people who tried to burn down your cabin? One just got arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico with $50,000 in cash and a fake passport. Turns out Viv hired them through her cousin's security company in Dallas. The next morning brings news that makes everything surreal. Viv's called a press conference to announce she's filing for political asylum in Mexico, claiming persecution by the American Deep State Environmental Terrorism Complex. But customs agents at Denver International arrest her trying to board a private jet with 2 suitcases full of cash, gold coins, and bearer bonds worth $3 million. The federal courthouse in Denver looks like a fortress on sentencing day. Inside, federal judge Patricia Williams presides with the kind of authority that makes grown men confess. Vivian Ashworth sits at the defendant's table looking like a different person. Gone is the perfectly coiffed HOA queen. In her place sits a broken woman in an orange jumpsuit, platinum blonde hair showing gray roots. Mrs. Ashworth, Judge Williams says. You stand convicted of operating a criminal enterprise that defrauded families of over $23 million. You used homeowner associations as weapons to terrorize neighbors, corrupted public officials, and hired criminals to intimidate witnesses. The courtroom is silent. You turned the American dream of home ownership into a nightmare of harassment and theft. Judge Williams leans forward. Mrs. Ashworth, this court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole, followed by 10 years supervised probation. You will pay restitution in the amount of $69 million. The number hits like a physical blow. Viv's face goes white then gray. Additionally, all assets connected to your criminal enterprise are hereby forfeited for victim compensation. Viv finds her voice, pure desperation. Your Honor, this is persecution. I was protecting property values. That mountain man destroyed everything. Mrs. Ashworth, Judge Williams interrupts with ice-cold authority. You demanded many things. You demanded that neighbors surrender their property rights. You demanded that elderly residents pay illegal fees. Today I demand justice for your victims. Bailiff, please remove the defendant. As federal marshals escort Viv out, she turns back with wild eyes, scanning until she finds me. This isn't over, Forrester, she screams. You think you won, but you've destroyed everything. Her voice cuts off as the courtroom doors close. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my cabin porch with real electricity, hot coffee, and the satisfaction of watching the valley heal. The morning air carries the scent of wildflowers returning. The federal asset forfeiture turned into the largest victim compensation fund in Colorado history. Every family that got defrauded received full restitution plus damages. Pine Ridge has been transformed from environmental crime scene into model sustainable community. The EPA's cleanup removed contaminated soil, restored natural water flow, and established conservation easements protecting the watershed forever. The real victory came when we established the Pine Ridge Community Foundation using forfeited assets. The foundation provides college scholarships, funds habitat restoration, and operates the Mountain Veterans Retreat program. Every month, combat veterans dealing with PTSD can spend a week at the cabin learning practical skills and finding peace. The program is funded entirely by Viv's forfeited assets. Poetic justice doesn't get much more perfect. Roxanne stops by with news. Deck, remember those other HOA fraud schemes? Federal prosecutors just announced indictments in Texas, Florida, and Arizona. Your case opened the floodgates. She hands me a newspaper. Colorado Mountain Man Stand Against HOA Tyranny Sparks Nationwide Reform Movement. You've become something of a folk hero. Property rights organizations are calling you the patron saint of homeowners fighting HOA abuse. The article mentions legislation being introduced in 12 states. Federal lawmakers are considering the Forester Act, requiring mineral rights notification for all development projects. Tonight, the valley is quiet except for natural sounds, creek water over rocks, wind through pine trees, the distant call of an owl. No generators, no expensive vehicles delivering legal threats, no clipboard-carrying suburbanites. Just peace. As I'm settling in, my phone buzzes with a message from a combat veteran in Montana asking for advice about an HOA trying to force him off land his family has owned for generations. I pour myself coffee, fire up the laptop, and start typing a response. Because bullies only win when good people stay isolated and afraid. Pine Ridge Valley is healing. Justice has been served. But the fight for property rights is bigger than one corrupt HOA queen. Time to help the next mountain man stand his ground. Share your HOA nightmare stories in the comments. Subscribe for more David vs. Goliath justice stories that prove sometimes the little guy really can win. Remember, document everything, know your rights, and never let suburban dictators turn your community into their personal kingdom. Justice Mountain Style. Case closed.